This is the Breakaway Podcast, presented by the National Bird Hunters Association. The NBHA's Breakaway Podcast is brought to you by Purina Pro Plan, fine-tuned nutrition to promote strength and stamina in the canine athlete and longest-standing supporter of the sport of field trialing nationwide. You can fuel your champion with Purina Pro Plan using various physical and online retailers nationwide found wherever pet food is sold. Purina Pro Plan, fuel the champion within. Garmin, delivering innovative GPS-enabled technology across diverse markets, including sports and fitness, outdoor recreation, marine, automotive, and aviation. Garmin, engineered on the inside for life on the outside. Gundogs Supply, the leader in training collars, tracking collars, and so much more. Fast, friendly service, great customer support, and the newest gun dog products on the market. Gundogs Supply, we train our dogs with the products we sell. Mule brand clothing and apparel, outdoor clothing for all sorts of environments and conditions. From hunters in briars and wading creeks to forestry personnel, farmers, motorcycle riders, and utility workers, Mule is clothing for hunters, made by hunters for over 38 years. Find your Mule brand gear at www.okidogsupply.com. Gundogs Central. Gundogs Central is a centralized location for finding your next dog, whether it be a pointing dog, retriever, flusher, versatile breed, hound, or even terrier, you name it. Gundogs Central is the place to find your next canine athlete. To find your next champion, visit them at www.gundogscentral.com. onX Hunt, the #1 hunting GPS app. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. onX Hunt, know where you stand. And Park Cities Quail Coalition. Park Cities Quail Coalition is a nonprofit organization run 100% by volunteers who are passionate about sporting traditions and determined to make it available to future generations by working to sustain and restore huntable wild quail populations, to encourage and educate interested youth, and to celebrate the quail hunting heritage. Welcome back to the 8th episode of the Breakaway Podcast. I am once again your host, Joe Hopkins. So glad that you've joined us. And if you enjoy this podcast, or even if you're listening for the very first time, please take the time to tell a friend, like, subscribe, and review the channel to help grow and promote the podcast and the sport of field trialing that we all love. Our guest this episode is Dell Creek Gundogs professional Mr. Tom Waite from Burlington, Wisconsin. Tom, along with his son Tyler, operate the Dell Creek Gundog operation, offering a complete and versatile suite of gun dog training services, including pointing and retriever training within all breeds. Tom has competed as a professional handler on many different circuits within several different organizations to great success, including the NBHA, U.S. Complete, and the National Red Setter Circuit. Tom has handled and developed Hall of Fame dogs such as Zanset's Simply Red and Blair's Witch Project on the walking circuit, while also finding success in other sporting dog arenas, such as developing and handling dogs to Master Hunters titles as well. Tom and his longtime scout and assistant Andrea Ward are current NBHA stalwarts and compete all over the country and have achieved great success all throughout the field trial world, but have also helped in establishing and assisting a unique and tight-knit community of amateur handlers and their dogs, helping them find success not only in open championships while under his whistle, but in amateur championships and stakes under their owners' whistles as well. But before we get to Tom, let's go around the field trial world. In NBHA action, the 2023-2024 NBHA National Amateur Invitational Championship concluded with this year's winner being Brittany Male K-Dale's Eagle Magnum Hotshot, owned and handled by amateur specialist Ken DeLong. This year's NBHA Sharptail Champion Pointer Female Over the Hill Mary got her picture taken again on the winner's stand, this time in Missouri for owner-handler Rod Lean, winning the Missouri State Classic, with Kenny Snow handling second-place Pointer Female Snow's Rhiannon, and David Cates rounding out the placements with third-place Setter Male Roy. The unique and extremely successful Park Cities Quail Coalition Benefit Trial and Handling Seminar, raising nearly nearly $4,500 for Park City's Quail Coalition. Saw off 12 amateur shooting dogs with Vizsla female Fortius Make Someday Today for Sean and Jacqueline Anderson taking first place, followed by pointer male Banjo in second for NBHA Oklahoma State Director Matthew Puckett, and Casey's Guitar Man rounding out the placements in third for NBHA President, Owner, and Handler Ken Sauer. The amateur shooting dog judgment ceases at Flush or Gundog Stakes saw Llewellyn setter male Bo winning top prize for owner Conrad Jett, and second place going to Grand Slam's Gun Singing Cruise, a setter male for Sammy Davidson in second, and male German short hair pointer named Panzer in third for David Strickland. Congratulations. In other horseback action, the Texas Open Shooting Dog Championship saw Upfront Southern Star, handled by Sean Kinkler and owned by Lance Schultz, taking the championship, with runner-up champion being Winona's Nickelback Sugar, setter female, handled by Alan Vincent, owned by Bruce Suter and Brad Tolson. Winners of the Razorback Open Shooting Dog Championship, it's Sean Kinkler again at the top with Thunderbolts Wild Again, pointer male, and a pointer female in second for Sean Kinkler, Chelsea's Mae West, and in third, Virgil Moore with pointer male Resolution. Owner handler Tom Kurtzinger won the Ozark Shooting Dog Championship with pointer female Stylish Miss Bell, with runner-up champion being Winona's Nickelback Sugar again for handler Alan Vincent and owners Bruce Suter and Brad Tolson. The Region 6 Amateur All-Age Championship in Holly Springs concluded, and this year's champion was called Como Thunder, a pointer male owned and handled by David Russell, followed by runner-up champion and consistent all-age entrant Dialed In, a pointer female owned and handled by Jim Pendergast. The South Carolina Open Shooting Dog Championship concluded with this year's victor being Faithful, a pointer female handled by Mike Tracy, with runner-up being called Miller's Heat Seeker, also handled by Mike Tracy. The National Amateur All-Age Invitational Championship saw Dr. Fred Corder's pointer male Rebel Air taking the first place honors and champion, and runner-up being Rebel Survivor, owned and handled by David Williams. Steve Croy's pointer male Haney's All In was named champion at the U.S. Championship, handled by Mark McClain, and the runner-up being Miller's Heat Advisory for John Mattias, handled by Judd Carlton, taking runner-up. Nonami's Johnny Come Lately took the Gulf Coast Open Shooting Dog Championship for handler Ray Pierce in Union Springs, Alabama, with the runner-up being named Aaron's Primetime, handled by Tracy Swearingen. The coveted and historical Quail Championship Invitational in Paducah, Kentucky was won this year by Alan Linder's pointer male Aaron's Code of Honor, handled by Luke Eisenhart, and runner-up honors being taken by pointer male Bonner's Bulletproof, handled by Randy Anderson and owned by Dr. Chris Cornman. And another walking field trial news, it's BK's Bonafide Stallion taking the Region 3 Amateur Shooting Dog Championship with the Broad River Field Trial Club at the Mid-Carolina Field Trial Grounds, with runner-up being named High Rollins BK Bushwhacker. And this year's Hall of Fame inductions were finalized, seeing field trial pillar Mr. David Williams and professional handler and trainer extraordinaire Mr. Rich Robertson being inducted in the Hall of Fame, with dogs champion House's Raincloud and champion True Confidence being placed in field trial immortality as well. Congratulations to all the connections. For more information or a schedule of all upcoming field trial events, please visit www.nbhadog.org or www.americanfield.com, or follow us on Facebook and Instagram for all your latest field trial news. Now let's welcome in our guest, Mr. Tom Waite. Joining us now on the Breakaway Podcast is professional handler and trainer Mr. Tom Waite of Dell Creek Gundogs of Burlington, Wisconsin. Tom, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule right smack dab in the middle of the field trial season. How's it going?
It's going very well, Joe. I mean, things have been good. Weather's been good. Now it's time to get ready for that spring trial season.
Yeah, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about the schedule, the NBHA schedule season as it is, and we're not really into the meat of the championship season yet with regards to our Open championships and some of our regional championships. So we've not really seen Tom Waite out and about with the rig going down the highway just yet. It's going to get cranked up, and when it gets cranked up, it goes nonstop. But what's Tom Waite and the Dell Creek Gundog team and your operation? What are you doing this time of year?
Well, this time of the year, I mean, as far north as we are, our trial season varies, from a lot of the other people down south. And so when we get into the trial season, we're just beginning. And when everybody's done down south, we're just getting going up here. But, most of what the fall brings is I spend a lot of time in North Dakota, a lot of time working dogs. We have, a lot of clients with the meat of the hunting season being there. You'd think a lot of people wouldn't be, they'd be hunting. Well, you'd be surprised on how many people, both field trial people and hunting people, want to get those dogs and get those dogs worked, get things going in the right direction. And one would say, well, the fall, aren't you hunting? Aren't you? I'm hunting, but, it's the old story. When your passion is your work and your work is your passion, this is what you spend your time doing. And I get a chance to, like I said, luckily I've got a place in North Dakota. I spend time out there. We just got back from there mid-November and then we're hitting it hard again. We really never stop.
Yeah.
But
The North Dakota thing in the prairie training season there, a lot of us don't get to enjoy that, Tom, but we live vicariously through photos and stuff, through social media and stuff like that. It seemed like the bird numbers were pretty good this year, and I heard some pretty good reports. Is that kind of how you saw it?
I would say the bird numbers are very good.
Wow.
I'm very fortunate, where I'm at, that I've got a lot of ground. I've worked on that for the past 30 years out there, and we've got about 120,000 acres.
Wow.
Posted acres. They don't let anybody else but me run out there. So I'm very fortunate, but I can see really with the bird numbers, they aren't disturbed. They aren't, they haven't been chased around, but those bird numbers have been strong. The pheasant numbers are on their way back. Sharp-tail numbers have been great. The hun numbers were great this year. And, it makes it so much better for development, and work of these dogs and hunting. And it's something that I don't think an experience that a dog gets out there, they can get anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, it's this common theme amongst the people that have trekked out there or make the trek out there, that they don't believe that there's anything that will have that kind of imprint on that dog other than those days they spend on the prairies. And it's the exposure to birds, but also, being able to pattern a dog and really start to see what the dog's capable of with range and stuff like that. And you get to iron that out. But it's not only your field trial dogs that benefit from that, Tom. You got guys that's got hunting dogs, guys and gals with hunting dogs that get to benefit from that trip, I'd assume, right?
Absolutely. I'd probably take half and half. Trial dogs and hunting dogs, and in the hunting dogs, I almost think there's times that they benefit more because the exposure that they get out there with most of the people, it encouraged these people to get out and go to these other states, run these dogs in different places, do things, because in their mind they're saying, hey, this dog had an opportunity on prairie chickens and sharp-tails and Hungarian partridge and pheasants instead of just a shooting preserve, or
Right.
maybe they hunt grouse in the woods. The trial dogs, it's just a huge place, to be able to see them, be able to pattern them, get them into birds, but be able to see what's going on out there. Let's be honest. And when we're training, sometimes they get away with things we never see.
Yeah.
Out there. It's pretty hard to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty much for the world to see, and you get to make those corrections. That's the 2023 trip to North Dakota. That's the now, though, Tom. I think the biggest thing where we need to start with this is, how did Tom Waite get started with dogs, period? How did Tom Waite get to be a dog man? What was your first dog? Did you grow up in a family of dogs? How did Tom Waite find himself in the bird dog world?
Well, it's funny. A lot of people, got a dog, went saw a field trial, a hunt test and something, and they started with a dog, they're going to get involved in it. Well, my whole life has been revolved around dogs: hounds, bird dogs, retrievers, spaniels. My dad did it since he was, a young man, but I would say probably 30 good years of being a dog man. Bird dogs, he loved his hounds. We had American Water Spaniels when American Water Spaniels weren't the in thing.
Yeah.
It was, my whole life had been going, starting off going to field trials, going south to field trials, going north to field trials, going places. So, it was funny because, my dad, I think, more or less, said I wouldn't become a dog trainer. So,
Wow.
you go, because people don't understand the dedication and time and the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into doing it right.
Sure.
And, you're a dog farmer to a degree if you do it right. I mean, your life is spent doing that. And that's all growing up, that's what I did. I loved the dogs. I loved being part of it. I loved the bird hunting, the rabbit hunting. When I was a kid, you could hunt wild birds right not far from where, I grew up and where I, now today there are no wild birds.
Sure.
Here, but it was just something that I grew up in. And, the bird dog end of it was just it was all kinds of dogs. It was unfortunate my dad had passed away in 92. And, I kind of from there, my end of Dale Creek Gundogs had started. That is when I more or less became, a pro and started training, for a living. Started off part-time because I worked for the Wisconsin DNR. I'm a wildlife biologist by title. That's what he suggests I go do something besides dogs. And, that's where I'd started with it. But, I spent, a lot of time up on, like in central Wisconsin. I had a kennel on the Buena Vista Marsh. We run a National Prairie Chicken Shooting Dog Championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able, and fortunate to have a lot of people, a lot of people that are, icons and legends in the bird dog world, spent a lot of time there over the years, during some of these trials. And I was training at the time, but, mostly gun dogs,
Sure.
pointers, setters, a little bit of everything, retrievers, spaniels, and it was one of those deals where I just decided, I might as well try these games, play some of these games. And, I jumped right in. I had a lot of success easier. You say the first dog. Well, we had a setter. It wasn't by far the first dog, but we had a setter that was the last puppy in a litter out of a Smith bred female and a local delight bred dog here in Wisconsin. It turned out to be probably the premier bird dog that I've ever seen. And
Wow.
Those are big shoes to fill.
Sure.
And people say, "Oh, that's crazy." Everybody's got a great one. I just don't know how many. But this dog was a dog that every time I put him on the ground, it didn't matter if it was in the cover dog trials. It doesn't matter if it was in a walking stake. Doesn't matter if it was a horseback stake. It didn't matter what it was in, where it was. He was competitive. He was a bird dog. Always had bird finds. Always did things that. He ran against some of the premier bird dogs in the cover dog world for years and outbirded a very, very large percentage of them.
Wow.
And, so that made it one of those things where, okay, now you go to trials, now you're competitive. I had, 4 or 5 of my own dogs to start with while still training a ton of dogs. And then, once I got into it, the infancy of it, became a work part of it. I had some of my clients got interest. They enjoyed going. The walking stakes, especially because they could do it. And they didn't have to have a horse. They didn't have to have all the things. And they could still take these dogs and go out and go hunting. And, that's one thing that I'd said to them. I said, the field trialing, you have to work at it all year to keep your dog right, but you can hunt these dogs, you can guide with these dogs, you can do things, and a good trial dog to me is an all-around good thing. And a lot of my really, good influences in clients early on had that same mentality, but I just took it to the next level.
Sure.
We had a friend of ours that was a good friend of my dad's, and he had pointers and setters ever since I can remember. And, back then, these guys, all they did is hunt wild birds. I look at things like the first rough grouse I ever shot in my life. I shot 30 miles from my house, and there hasn't been a grouse there in 30 years.
Wow.
But this guy had said to me, his name was Bruce Dentis, and he said to me, he said, you're pretty good at this. He said, I think that, this is something I liked. I got involved in. He would take me to Iowa when he went. My dad, was busy, working, didn't have time, whatever be the case. And I got this opportunity to go out and see these high-end pointers and setters that were wild bird dogs. Now, were they all broke? Absolutely not. But they were dogs that I look back now and say, this is the real deal. These dogs were where it was at. And it's funny how that all kind of then transpired and grew, because that same, gentleman, 30 years later, he's getting all his dogs from me. I'm working his dogs. I'm getting his dogs, and he is a hunting fool. And it's people like him that, helped bring me into the game in such a way and I hate to say it, but with the high quality that you started with an expectation.
Right.
And I think that made a difference in being in dogs, essentially since I was a young man, a boy, essentially. You begin with a passion for the game, but then I'm a very competitive sort.
Right.
So when it comes to playing the games, I'm in to win.
Yeah. And you have to be. You have to be. And, Tom, the term dog man or dog lady gets passed around and used and tossed around quite loosely nowadays, but you had an influence in your dad with dogs, and he's trying to push you away from a professional point of view into a career in that, but you find yourself in it anyways. And it's kind of like what me and you talked about earlier. This is something you can't hardly describe to people on the outside. It's an addiction almost to the point it's a disease. And if it's a pursuit of yours, and you have to go after it or you go crazy. And enjoying the work part of it is the largest part of being a dog man, because there's going to be more knocks on the chin. There's going to be more letdowns and losses than there are pictures in the field. And I think that's what separates the dog men versus the people that just like to be around animals and have animals. But the dog man and the dog woman is a very special sort. And you've been in trials through all shapes and sizes and facets, hunt tests, field trials, cover dog, walking, horseback. You've literally done it all. But you mentioned something in there, the influences that you've had throughout your career, some to this degree. And you mentioned your dad and other people and all that. But suddenly this career starts to find its way into the NBHA. Tell me how Tom Waite kind of found his way through this maze of field trials and bird dog competition and finds himself now within the NBHA circuits.
Well, it started in other venues. Up in the state of Wisconsin, we really didn't have, a U.S. Complete, an NBHA, an ABHA until, well, probably 20 years ago at least. And what it was we had American field sanctioned trials. There were shoot to retrieve, there were cover dog, there were some non-AFTCA cover dog trials that, grouse trials, woodcock trials. And, with this growing in the business, the growing in the competition, and a client base that really was competitive and wanted to play the games, we started a few clubs. In starting the clubs, we started with the ABHA. That kind of fizzled. We went with the US Complete. That, more or less they pushed us out. I mean, good, bad, or indifferent, however you look at it. And, I was seeking a way to keep these people in these trials up here and keeping people involved in this walking venues. And, it was Doug Meyer who had actually contacted me, and we had talked about getting involved, getting our clubs involved in the NBHA.
And Doug was the president at the time, right?
He was the president at the time, and a very good spokesperson for the organization.
Yeah.
And, I told him exactly what was going on. I said, hey, listen, at this time, we're getting involved. We have large numbers of entries in the state of Wisconsin, more than most other states that were, let's just say, in the US Complete at that time. And they wanted to essentially run a national organization in a region. And we were way outside the region.
Sure.
And, we had a championship. We had great entries. We had a lot of things going. And, Doug went out of his way, said, hey, we're going to help you. We think we should get involved. This is a great organization. I had to obviously talk it over with other, club members and things that were, people that were all part of this group. And I said, I think this is the way we need to go. I think this looks like the up and coming thing. And I think we can help the organization. And I think the organization can help us and keep things real here. And I think it was the influx of people and dogs that I think, our state and our region has here. And, I'm not going to take full responsibility for it, but I'm going to take a large part of it because, I was able to get these people involved into something that now they've come to love. And like I said, it started off as essentially, I hate to say it this way, but it was like a last ditch effort to get us into an organization that was going to be what everybody here wanted, a good walking, organization with good people. And it was set up for the betterment of the dogs and for people selling it. And that's what it is. And I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about it.
Sure.
And that is a huge thing.
And Tom, that's the crux of it. That's what we want to do, is try to build communities and get people involved ultimately, but make orders of people that last and build friendships and create communities that better themselves not only as people but as dog people, and better trainers, better handlers, better communicators of dog things and stuff like that. And I feel like that, you and your operation and a lot of other people that are involved kind of embody that. And that's exactly what maybe our definition should be. But what was it, or what is it about the NBHA and specifically the format that fits Tom Waite and Dale Creek Gundogs and or your clients?
Well, in my world, which is a very vast world of dogs. I mean, and I say this, as a precursor, being involved in, retriever hunt tests, spaniel hunt tests and field trials, pointing dog hunt tests and field trials, and having a wide range and variety of people, of which a lot of these people in these different venues still get involved in the walking, the NBHA end of it. To me it is it's, I like the fact of having a callback in these national trials. I like that there's a fact. I mean, is it hard? Is it miserable? Is it hard to do it right for an hour? Absolutely. Is it harder to do it for 2 hours right? Absolutely. But what we're doing is we're separating the wheat from the chaff. You get to these trials and it gives people the big dance. It gives people the opportunity to try to be the best, or their dogs to be the best in the country. But it's a tough thing. And a lot of these people that, clients that have gotten involved with me, like I said earlier on, they're very competitive people and they want to be involved in it. But, the format of the walk-in stakes, a lot of them are relatively the same. I think, the ability for some of these people that are, have gotten into it, that have horses, they can be in a gallery, they can ride, they can be part of the camaraderie of it. The people that don't can still have an opportunity to participate.
Yeah.
But still, they can run their dogs. They can get someplace to have dog wagons. Certain things to keep these people involved. In the format of the NBHA, as the regular weekend stakes and things like that, it is pretty comparable to a lot of places. But it's when you get to the bigger trials, the National Open, the Invitational, to the National Amateur Invitational, to the amateur, where you start adding callbacks and things into this, where it makes you have to train better. It makes you have to condition better. It makes you have to become a better handler. You now have to play a game of chess, because you have to look at it, okay, and I try to explain to my clientele, in the trial that, the trials that you have a callback, I said, you want to make the callback, but you don't want to blow your wad right away.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to have something left in the tank so that you can excel for that second half. The first step is making it there. The second step is winning it. And, so much can go on. So many things can happen. And, I like how the dogs run. I like, I like dogs that can run in all venues. I like a dog that I can take most of these dogs that we win with in the NBHA, and I can get on horseback and I can be competitive and win a horseback stake.
Sure.
And, I like that about it. The format and the understanding of the dogs and the people involved, are all on the same page.
Right.
And, it's obviously when you talk about a trial and you have judges involved, you try to keep people that are good dog people, that understand dogs, that aren't out to, set a precedent above and beyond what's reality, but something so that when, these people, my clients, myself, other competitors come, you feel confident, you feel comfortable, you're running in an event that tests the dog to all its fairness.
Yeah.
And when you get to these upper levels, the trials with callbacks, now you have to take that to the next level. And most of the other walking venues don't have it. A lot of the horseback venues don't have it. And let me tell you, I enjoy a 1 hour, when I'm walking, I enjoy a 1 hour championship, but because, it that extra hour, and what used to be 2 hours initially, and then an hour and a half, and, and I've won it in those times, but it's one of those deals where you add this extra hour, you add a whole nother mix to the game.
Yeah, it's the dog doesn't have to have that one flash in the pan. He's got to put it together, twice, sometimes maybe 3 times in other venues like the Quail Invitational Championship. But I know, if you're going to make it on the big stage in the NBHA, you're going to have to put together at least 2 good runs, and so many things go into that: stamina and all kinds of training, and just having a level head and a dog that can reserve itself and then know when to lay the pedal to the metal. But these top trials are what separate good dogs from great dogs. And it's just a unique thing that we have, I guess, in the walking ranks. And I never really looked at that way. But if you want an honest opinion and an honest audit of your breeding program, your training acumen, and all of those things put together, your handling abilities, it requires you to go and dance the big dance and compete against the best. And, we feel like at the NBHA, we offer that. So we're proud of that, and we're glad that you enjoy that, and glad that you take pride in it as well. But that's your NBHA jump in, and to where you're at now with the circuit and career and what you like about it. Tell us a little bit about the operation at home, Dale Creek Gundogs. How many years have you been in business? What services do you offer, and how does Dale Creek operate?
Well, Dale Creek has been since 1992. I had been training prior to that, but it really was established in 1992. It was established in central Wisconsin, like I said earlier, on the Buena Vista Marsh. I had a kennel there, and I was training quite a few dogs, all make, shape, sizes, trial dogs, hunting dogs, the whole ball of wax, running on wild birds a lot, doing things. Well, the operation, my dad's kennel, my godfather's kennel down here, after my dad had passed away, was kind of just laying in limbo. There wasn't much going on. And so I came down and, ran a kennel here, started it, essentially just a new location, but it was an old location because dogs been trained and run out of there for 30 years. But, I had brought my clients, my stuff down here, and, we started the retriever hunt tests, the spaniel hunt tests, the spaniel field trials, the pointing dog hunt test, the pointing dog field trials, cover dog, walking dog, horseback. And, to me, it sounds kind of foolish, but I think boredom would set in with just a one-dimensional business.
Sure.
And, to be able to go out and run a bunch of pointing dogs and then have to go out and set up, drills for lining drills or blind drills or, for retrievers, or working on sit to the flush with a spaniel, or quartering and patterning, it gives you a break. It's tough. There aren't many people who do it. I think I'm a rarity in that.
Yeah.
But, with that, the business grew to a point where the 32 runs we had at the kennel weren't enough.
Sure.
So it got to a point where I had two, very good clients that became very good friends that said to me, "Hey, what are you thinking?" I said, "Well, I've got to do something different. I got to get another piece of property. I got to grow. I've got to do something different." And, it was one of those deals where I had a client who had a lot of ground in kind of northwest Wisconsin. And he had said, "Hey, listen, why don't you come here? You're established. I'll take care of this. I'll take care of that. All I want you to do is have 15 dogs for my shooting preserve. And whatever you train, you do." It would have been a great, opportunity.
Right.
And so these two people in particular, they said to me, "Well, listen, what is it going to take for you to stay? We don't want you to go, And then all of a sudden other people, "Hey, we don't want you to go. We really want you to stay." Well, we looked and looked and looked and looked and ended up landed where I am today. We've got 120 acres in southeastern Wisconsin. Beautiful landscape. It's managed for working dogs, running dogs. We've got a 30-minute course through the woods. It says if you were northern Wisconsin. We've got a 2-mile course. We've got a 1.5-mile course from everything from edges to, sorghum to, grass fields to set aside, to a little bit of everything. And, it allows us to do pretty much everything that we need to do and more. And, with that, it allows us also to train a multitude in different, breeds of dogs. And, we train about 300 dogs a year.
Wow.
My son is involved with me. He's been doing it now for 7 years professionally, Tyler Waite. And he's really turned into, somebody I can kind of depend on. And, he's a great dog trainer.
That's great.
And, it's always surprising but enjoyable when you think all the time you spent, hollering at your kids and yelling at your kids at your work that they haven't paid one lick of attention to anything you've ever done. So all of a sudden the light bulb goes on and you think to yourself, "Hell, I've got something here."
Is that as satisfying as it sounds, Tom, to have your son kind of pick up the torch and go into it and see his passion and to see his work ethic pay off? You say he's a great trainer, and I know accolades and comments from you, they mean something, because we've talked about dogs before and I've heard you speak, and to say that your son's a good dog trainer, that's got to be as satisfying as it sounds, right?
Well, and it is. And, it goes back to, your age of dog man. And, I think he has the potential to become a very good dog man. And to me, a dog man is a developer, a person that, gets involved, but for the right reasons. They passion, they have an understanding, they have a desire to do it. They want to learn. I mean, hell, the kid even asks me questions now about things when he can't figure something out. Tells me he's been listening, tells me he wants to be better. He wants to do it better.
Sure.
And for me, I've said to people several times, call what you want, a big head or whatever, but they say, what do you have to look for? What do you have to offer? And I said, here's the thing. I don't have to tell people anymore. I don't have to impress people anymore. A lot of things I've done have been firsts. You can't do a first again.
Right.
And I've got nothing to prove. I just want to see people, get a dog and be able to enjoy it.
Sure.
Enjoy time with it. Enjoy the people, watch the look on their face if it's their first field trial they win, or if their first time they take their grandson or their son or their daughter out hunting, and to me, I think that's passed on by my son too. He enjoys, the dog man part of it. He enjoys the part of being with the people, the clients, making people's day, making them have something worthwhile. And, I hired and fired probably 30 people over the years, and I never one that I would have kept. And, this deal was with my kid. He was supposed to go to college, had an opportunity to play football out of high school. And he had decided that he didn't want to go to school because very, very smart person, but hated school.
Oh.
And so this started off as, I'll tell you what, 6 months. We're going to try this for 6 months and we'll see how it goes, because let's be honest, the father-son work thing doesn't always work real well.
It can be a little dangerous.
And so here we are 7 years later.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So special, and so special. The teamwork that goes into running an operation. I was just talking to you today, and you said, yep, I got to jump off here, got to get some dogs worked. I've got a client here, and I just handed him a broom and sent him to work. And that just tells me that a business like yours, multifaceted and large scale, it's a team effort, and it requires a team effort. And that's what you have on the other side of the people that work for you, just like your son. Your clients chip in too. But Tom, you've competed on almost every circuit possible. I mean, the NBHA, you've done stuff with master hunt tests, you've done stuff with US Complete, National Red Setter Circuit. You've done all of those things. But the other thing, the little note that I have here, is you have won the National Open Championships in the NBHA, US Complete, and National Red Setter Circuit. Now, I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that that's not ever been done before, and that's not been done before in combination of other circuits. And you don't get there just by night. This has to be a lifestyle to do that, right?
I would agree. I mean, it's a dedication, on our end, but the clientele, good owners, good people, and great dogs is where it's at. And, you talk about, those venues of, the national championships, and you're right. And, it's even on the ends of, people would say at a lesser maybe scale, but the futurities, the winning the futurities with, 2 of the 3, big futurities with a red setter. That hasn't been done before.
Wow.
Winning that National Open Albury Championship with a red setter for the first time in history.
Yeah.
That hasn't been done before.
Right.
And it's, you talk the hunt test end of it. Lots and lots of master hunter retrievers. Lots of master, dual master hunters where they had upland titles and, retriever titles.
That's awesome.
Spaniels, the same thing. And it all comes, with a cost. And that cost is hard work, dedication, good dogs, and great clients.
Yeah.
And you say, is it a cost? No, it's not a cost, but your life pays by it, because my theory and my dedication to these people and the dogs, to get to those places, and like I said, I've been fortunate, I've been fortunate to win those nationals. I mean, in the NBHA National Open, I think we made the call back probably 5 of the last 7 years or 6 of the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Dogs in the final race. I had probably, 2 years ago, I had a dog that he ended up becoming the runner-up in the national. And he put down a performance that was the grittiest performance of any dog I've ever witnessed in my life and field trial career.
Wow.
And, he's a runner-up NBHA national champion, national open, but it was a performance that may not have been the flashiest, classiest, but I think eight fines, two of which were Covey fines in the first series. He blew his shoulder out 15 minutes in.
Oh, wow.
Ran on 3 legs for 45 minutes and put on a show and just went to it. And in the second series, in the callback, both the judges said to me, Tom, do you think this dog, before, he did the callback, he said, do you think this dog can do it? I said, here's what I'm right now. He deserves the opportunity. And I'm going to put him on the ground. And if he, at any given time, shows me that he can't do it, I'm picking him up, because it's not fair to the dog.
Sure.
And, he went on for an hour on 3 legs and ran like, nothing was bothering him.
Unbelievable.
Finished to the front. And as soon as they called time and I hollered to pick him up, the dog laid down out there.
Wow. Just laid it all out up until the time of the whistle blown.
And every time I went to him on a find or on a back, he backed on 3 legs. With a 12 o'clock tail, a high head, looking as good as you could look. Every time I went to him, he was wagging his tail. When I collared him, happy to go on. And, those things don't happen often.
No, and it's what makes them special. I mean, that's what makes that animal and our relationship with that animal so incredibly unique. I think our listeners are going to want to know, Tom, what dog was this?
It was Sky Dancer Flash Finish. His call name's Flounder. He had actually got the 2 years prior, had made the call back, and would have potentially, he would have won it one of the 2 years, except for he had a second non-productive at, 59 and a half minutes.
Oh.
And, it's one of those deals where, everybody makes mistakes, but when I'm at the big dance or at a big trial, I'll gamble. And I trust these dogs enough that he had convinced me he had a bird. And there were feather piles, things like that. But I made a decision as a handler, and on that note, I have clients say, "Well, how come you don't make mistakes?" Hey, I make as many mistakes as anybody, but it's because of that ability with that dog in particular, and like Blair's Witch Project, that Red, a lot of these dogs that I ran, past and present. We have a relationship that I trust them that it's going to be. And, did he not win? Yeah, he didn't. They actually withheld, I think, the national championship, reverted to shooting dog stake.
Yes.
But, that dog had the potential right there to win it. But, sure, I could have collared him, taken him out of there. But it was second unproductive because he had convinced me thousands of times that he had birds. And, that's what I went with. And like I said, that dog, anybody who witnessed him run when he took a runner-up, not this past, but the year before, I don't know that many people can say they saw a dog gutted out like that. I never have. And I've run a few dogs, and I've never seen a dog gutted out like that. And I actually, at the end, I'm getting a little sentimental because it brought a tear to me.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, this is a story, Tom, that it'd be hard for people to believe, but we've got this chronicalized, and we know that this happened. And you're speaking to a bigger point, and I'm glad you're getting emotional because this is going to prove my point. Field trials are made of moments, and there's not many of those moments that we have where the stars align and everything comes to fruition and everything goes your way. But when it does come together, it makes it all worth it. And what separates the real field trial people, the sport people, and the dog men and the dog women is the appreciation of that hard work and that effort and that relationship of the dog. You didn't win with that dog, but we've sat here and we've sacrificed several minutes on this performance, and rightfully so, because it's carved out a place in your heart because the dog did something well beyond what it was probably capable of physically, but that desire and the wanting to please you and the work that you poured into that dog has created a memory now that you'll carry with you probably to your deathbed. And that's what this game is all about.
And I would agree wholeheartedly with you. And I look at, and you talk about stories and memories. Some of my fondest memories are losing big trials at 59 minutes or losing the dog at 58 minutes after putting down an absolute perfect performance. And, it's some of those things that happen. I mean, one of the other performances that was that Zanset Simply Red, the one that we got inducted in the Hall of Fame, that won the U.S. Complete National. First series, he did a great job in the National. And second series at, 59 and a half minutes, he's standing like a statue. I'm taking my time. He has a nice find. Well, at an hour and 25 minutes, he has another beautiful find. I take my time getting to him. I trust him. He looks at me when I got 50 yards away, took 5 steps, knocked a whole covey of birds, and started himself back up. And it was one of those things where it deflated judges, it deflated me. But when I got there, I started laughing.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought to myself, you know what these are? These are dogs.
That's right. That's right. And that's what separates you from the people that expect, the world to fall in their lap every time in a perfect performance. And at the end of the day, these are animals, these are dogs, and we can it's the only sport that I can think of where we work night and day so hard, planning our breedings, making sure everything's in place training-wise, spending money on training birds, traveling the country, but at the end of the day, when it's time to compete, we cut that dog loose and our hands are off of it, and that dog is on its own to do its thing. We can guide that dog, and we can sing to that dog, and we can encourage that dog to take this line or do this or do that. But at the end of the day, that dog is on its own to do its thing, and that's what's so special about our sport. Now, let's go down this proverbial shed row of dogs here, and you've already mentioned a couple, and I want to start with Red. Zanset's Simply Red. The first red setter to win an unrestricted all-breed National Open Championship, and that was the U.S. Complete National Open Championship. 2002 Red Setter Hall of Fame inductee, owned by Catherine Lewis and former Purina rep, Mr. Dean Rinke. Tell us a little bit about Red. Tell us what we need to know about Red to make us feel like we know the dog.
Well, it's funny how it started off. It started off with Stan Zadanzowitz, who was Zanset Kennels, always an icon in the red setter world. You loved him or you hated him. He had brought a litter of puppies to me, and he said, "Tom, I want you to, work these dogs. I want you to look at these dogs, and see what we can do." Well, we put this whole litter of puppies on the ground, and we kind of go up the hill, and they're like 10, 11 weeks old. They go up on top of my training field. We jump on a four-wheeler. Stan couldn't walk. We get up on top. There's these puppies strung out for about 40 yards, pointing and backing. And the dog with the red collar was the very first one. And he says to me, that's one I like. I said, "Now, how do you know? They're 10 weeks old, So we go in, the birds flush, dogs take off, scatter, Next thing you know, we go up ahead about 75, 100 more yards, dogs are pointed again. Well, who do you think's up in front?
Uh-oh.
Well, Red, and then his brother Ricky, who I ended up getting, and he ended up keeping 3 out of that litter. Well, Red was one of those dogs that he started off, matured early. He was a dog very easy to break, and I won't even say break, I'll say develop, because at about 9 months old, when he was out in North Dakota with me the first time, him and his brother Ricky and his sister Margot, I cut them loose. They'd never been on the prairies. The first cast they make is about 700 yards. I go over this hill, go over the next hill, and there they're standing, strung out. Now, we'd been doing yard work and bird work and stuff, but we hadn't really started any kind of a breaking process at that point. They were just babies. And get up ahead, big covey of birds get out. I whoop, dog stops. They all stop. My buddy that was with me at the time shoots a bird for him, goes down, the dogs stand there like statues. I hit the whistle, they go on, Red picks it up, comes back. Well, this proceeded to go on for this whole trip. It was, to me, and believe me, and I'll be real honest, I've said it a million times, before this dog, probably 8 or 9 years, maybe 5 years even, before this dog, I would have never owned a red setter. Okay? You can say whatever you want. I just never saw any, when we braced with one, it was like, oh, man. Now, there were some people that had really good ones, but not all of them were on the walking circuit, and where we were anyway. And so, all of a sudden I'm thinking to myself, this dog is as good as anything I've got. All three of these dogs right now are as good as anything I've got. And at the time I had, some dogs, I think I had 8 or 9 dogs that were multiple champions, runner-up champions. Some of them had 40 shooting dog, 50 shooting dog placements. I mean, good dogs. And these dogs would run with them day in and day out. Well, Stan at the time was the owner. And I said, we need to get him on the walking circuit. And he says, what do you know about this to walk? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Because he was a horseback guy.
Yeah.
And you couldn't possibly take a dog and run it in the walking circuit.
No way. Not possible.
And so I believe it was the first fall. He was a first-year shooting dog. I took him. Not only did I take him to a walking stake, and he won it, but I took him in the grouse woods. And his first time in a cover dog championship, he had 2 grouse finds and a beautiful, beautiful race.
Wow.
I mean, big forward, laid it out there. And I asked the judge, well, what's the deal? He said, well, so-and-so had 3 woodcock. I'm thinking, well, okay, we're bean counting now. The quality is what we're looking at. So we went back to, all of a sudden, Stan has this new infatuation with me running the dog in the walking circuit against pointers and setters. Mind you, I think I had 18 or 19 dogs that I was campaigning, and he was one of them. He was the only red one at the time. So then that spring, we go to Jim Edgar, the U.S. Complete National was running there, and there were 47 or 50 dogs. I think 50 were entered, 47 ran. He was the only red dog there. And he put on a performance that was, there isn't a person there that couldn't say, nah, he didn't win it. Or maybe, there wasn't a bobble, there wasn't a flaw. There were 6 perfectly placed finds from the 5-minute mark to the 59-minute mark. And a stop to flush at the hour going across on probably a 300-yard cast.
Wow.
And, it was funny because a lot of the judges I'd known, I'd run under, I'd known for years. And a lot of the other people there, it was a big talk. I mean, there was more talk of how did the red setter win? And did it really happen? What really happened here? Well, then Red went on and he amassed a handful more runner-up championships. He had some great performances, knock on the door, as Kathy and Dean then purchased the dog as Stan got, older and sicker. And he said, I want you to be part of this. I want you to help me find a place for Red. And so I talked to Kathy and Dean right away. Now, Kathy and Dean had some setters they had, and they weren't competing really much at the time with setters. But I mean, very into the springers and doing very well on the Springer circuit. And I mean, Dean was in the Hall of Fame. Kathy is a great Springer trainer and handler. And I kind of threw it at him, said, hey, how would you guys like to get involved in this? Well, I think Kathy enjoyed the novelty thought of having a red setter, especially one that set history. And, this goes with the owners of a dog that allow the dog to become what he was. And that was them. Kathy got involved. I taught her how to start running the dog. All of a sudden she could run him. He would take her, and the big joke used to be, we'd go to a trial and he'd run and she was just there to shoot the gun. And, that was winning field trials with him. He was a very kind dog. I mean, I think I lost him one time in 11 years.
Wow.
And, he always was where he should be, always had birds. I don't remember, besides that time at the National, that he got picked up for a breach of manners. And he was just one of those special dogs. And, he was very well. I'm going to take a step back in his career. So before Dean and Kathy got him, and to me, this is a kind of a sad story, but it's I think what made him the dog and the relationship me and him had is before Dean and Kathy got him, Stan sent him out west. Oh, I got to run him. I got a gang run. We got to get him out. We got to do this. Well, whoever he sent him out with, he sent all 3 dogs. And I said, Stan, I think it's a foolish idea. We're right where we need to be. Things are going well. These dogs are going to win. Everything's grand. Well, he brought the dogs were gone for 3 months, and he was calling me in a panic. I don't know. Nobody can't get hold of anybody. I don't know what's going on with these dogs. Well, come to find out, I don't know if it was a family emergency, something happened. The dogs, when he brought the dogs back to me, Joe, they wouldn't come out of the crate. one was gun shy, one was bird shy. Red wouldn't come by any human being there was. Now, these are dogs I've had since they were 10 weeks old. And I said to him, you have probably ruined one of the finest dogs that I've had the pleasure of running.
Oh, man.
Well, as time would go on, and this is what, makes the dog even more special, special, but a pain in the ass special. He would only run for me. He would run for Kathy, but not the same. I would either have to have have Andrea scout, he loved her. If I had somebody else, if I said, hey, Joe, can you come scout for me and this red dog? You better hope you don't have to scout him, because he A, will not go with you, and B, he will have no part of being around you. Red scouted him a few times, but he was a dog that when I ran him, he gave 110% day in and day out. You couldn't just have somebody else run. You couldn't have somebody else scout him. And he got to a point where it was tough because of that. But you want to talk about a bond. A dog would do things for you that, no other dog would do. And that was, that was another one of those cases of a real bad deal that actually turned good. Go on to win, like I said, the national open, a bunch of, runner-up championships. I mean, he was in the top running, if you look back in the NBHA and the amateur standings, a lot of standings year after year after year. In the red setter, he was a red setter walk and shooting dog of the year, I think, for like 6 years.
Wow.
And the funny part with that is, not only was he an exceptional trial dog, an exceptional citizen, but a producer. Been bred, I think, about 5 or 6 times, and 3 years in a row, his puppies, 3 litters, 3 years in a row, won the red setter futurity, took second in the red setter futurity, placed first, second, second and third in the futurity. The dogs, everything that we bred him to, he produced with.
That's amazing.
Very, very limited breeding, but everything. I mean, this Raintree Blue Moon Friday dog that Kathy and Dean have now is one of his puppies out of his second litter.
Okay.
And, here again, that dog, I think 2 or 3 years in a row now has made it to the amateur invitational and, made the callback.
Amazing.
And, that, to me, a dog that's that special like Red was, to be able to also be a producer is somewhat unheard of. Usually you get a great dog and it never produces anything.
And it's just hard. It's hard for that dog to produce to the level it was. It was such an anomaly. It's the same thing in thoroughbreds and other domesticated animal sports we have. They perform at such a high level, but it's so much harder to replicate themselves with whatever intangibles it had. And, everything has a tendency to kind of regress or stay around the mean. So it's exceptionally hard. So when you have a dog that was limitedly bred like this one, but yet with a high strike rate where most of those pups that hit the ground are going to be a dog of some great caliber, it speaks to the greater aura of the dog, not just a performer and not just a breeder, but just all around good animal.
Well, and it was... I talked about first with the, winning 2 futurities. I mean, that was one of his daughters, and Foxy Lady Sadie, owned by Mike Fox. I mean, she's another one.
Who I was just braced with this week at the Kentucky State Classic, and we won't go into what happened because
did you whoop her?
What? No, we were laying it down. Okay, we'll do that. We're going to do this. Me and Mike were absolutely laying it down. Sadie and my Fin dog were absolutely blazing the course. I've never seen a finer race on my dog, and Sadie always puts down a great race. The only problem, and I mean the judges are setting up in their saddles. We've got their attentions, and it's going great. The only thing, no birds. Neither dog had a find, and I guess it just kind of knocked us out. I was so proud. Going back to what you were saying earlier about moments, you didn't win with the dog that blew its shoulder out. I could not have been prouder of my Fin dog after I got him up, and he did the same thing. He absolutely blew out an hour as hard as he could. Everywhere you looked and wanted him to show up, there he was. He was on the right lines. He was going the right places, never came up from behind, just doing absolutely everything right. And when that hour was over and I blew the whistle to gather him up, he laid down. He was just shot, but I was so proud of him. And I know Mike's always proud of Sadie, but that Sadie is so consistent, and she has got so much natural talent. And I'm hearing, I guess that's a precursor of her genetics from Red. She gets that from Red.
And I would agree with that. And, I can tell you, there again, breeding a few dogs, seeing a few dogs, in my life and my career, I have never seen, with, like I said, different bitches that have produced, Sadie's got a half brother, Blaze, Brooks White Hot Blaze, that Luke Davis out of Nebraska owns. And I won the Red Setter National Open with him last year. He won the Red Setter Futurity. He won a runner-up in our Northern Regional here this past spring. And, when I look at these dogs, I see their dad, and obviously, hey, Mike wants to say he sees Missy in them. That's great. But I see their dad. I see what, Friday. I see, Kathy and Dean own this young dog batch. That's the last live litter, live covered litter out of Red, and they're derbies this year. And I'm going to tell you, better watch out for them if you're competing, because these dogs are showing everything and more.
Oh, I've seen it firsthand. They're nothing to mess around with. We don't have a lot of people dedicated to red setters, but I'm fortunate enough in my neck of the woods. I run with Tim and Christine Hammonds quite often. That's a serious string of red dogs. Absolutely. Can go anywhere, can compete all age, shooting dog. If they wanted to, they could dominate walking. Just a serious set of dogs. Tom, let's go down the shed row a little bit farther and let's pick up another shag, but this time of the regular sort, a setter male, Blair's Witch Project, owner between a good friend of yours and mine, Greg Blair, 4-time champion, 3-time national champion. Unfortunately, we lost Guy this past spring, but you're going to be graced again with another dog in another Hall of Fame, this time with Blair's Witch Project going into the 2023-2024 NBHA Hall of Fame as an inductee this July. Tell us a little bit about Guy and how it was running a dog of that caliber.
Well, now, here's another case of, a person falls into one. And I'll tell you, Greg had Dr. Alan Dunbar, who, you'll see him in the horseback circuit.
Just judged the Kentucky Quail Classic with him for 4 days. Super guy.
And he's a great guy. And, and you talk about history and things going back, and some people, I think I just fell off the turnip truck like a year ago, or maybe at night, but it wasn't last night. And, I remember when Alan had his first cover dogs and I was judging him in amateur stakes in the woods. I'm talking in the probably mid-late 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've known Alan a long time, and he's a great guy, and he breeds some exceptionally good dogs.
Yes,
and,
he does.
Greg had started talking to him, and Alan said, "Hey, I got this young dog for you to look at." Well, Greg brought him down, put him on the ground. I looked at him, and I said, "Greg, I would. This would be a dog that I would get if I were you." Well, I ran him in some trials, and we ran him as a derby. He placed first trial, walking trial that we ran him in. He placed first horseback trial I ran him in. He placed. Took him up to the Wisconsin Cover Dog Championship, ran him in the Derby. He won it. Now, this goes back to my desires and wants as a pro to be able to run in all these venues with these dogs. And Guy was the epitome of what I was hoping for. And I've done it for a lot of years, but he did it with style. He won the big dances, and he was competitive every lick of the way. Well, I think I told you earlier, Greg was going to sell him.
Yes.
And, it came down to another good friend of ours, Dr. David Matthews, who I've run dogs for years and is a good friend of ours, to essentially put it in Greg's craw a little bit that maybe if somebody was that interested in buying his dog, he shouldn't sell it. And as time would go on, just an unbelievable competitor, a phenomenal bird dog. I mean, always was to the front. If he didn't show, he was pointed. He just had that innate ability, that running style, that class, and an unbelievable bird sense and nose that, you hope for in a dog. And he had the whole package.
Yeah.
And, it was one of those things, where he made things look easy sometimes. I mean, when the NBHA ran at the Ames Plantation, when we were able to get it there the one year, which was, I mean, it was a historic thing.
Sure. Yeah, it was great.
He had it flat out won. But in the 2 hours, at about an hour and 55 minutes of the second hour, there was a bit of miscommunication between me and the judges. I thought I was bleeding, and from how they were talking, when the reality was everything had been good and they were looking hard, and I didn't have to prove anything else.
Oh.
But we found this all out after the fact. And what essentially ended up happening was goes makes a huge cast on one of those fields, rims the whole field, gets out and gets pointed. And a situation that happened prior to it was the dog was pointed, a big covey of birds were running. It was his third find, I believe, which, you know, out there to have 3 finds as a walking dog is
that's good.
Good. And the judges were with me. The gallery moved up, probably where they shouldn't have, and the birds got up on the backside of the horses.
Mm.
And, you know, they said, shoot your gun. And then they started hollering at, you know, at the gallery per se. I collar the dog and I go on, and now I'm thinking, man, I better really give them something here to look at.
Yeah.
Because, you know, just by
you think you desperately need it. You think you're in a point that you desperately need something else.
The way to catch it was to get it, have another find and show them how it was done right.
Yes.
You know, and he had a non-productive in a spot about halfway through that had so many roosting spots in it, and the birds had been in there, and, you know, throughout the all age national net there, it's a bird spot. I mean, there's always, you know, birds there. And there again, a dog you trust, you know, and we relocated on that non-productive about 6 times, and he moved up and pointed, you know, on a relocation, handled it. And that was one thing with that dog too, is his ability to relocate wild birds, pen-raised birds, it didn't matter, was second to none. But so back to this trial, you know, I'm thinking to myself, now I'm bleeding. So he makes this beautiful cat. He's just hitting the lick going across his field. You know, this is when it was still 2 hours, and we've got 5 minutes left. He gets up and gets pointed in the spot that I know religiously birds had been pointed there.
Yeah.
So I trust him. So I go up and I go ahead of him and I flush and I flush and flush and flush and flush and flush and flush. And I go to relocate him. He won't move. So I keep flush and flush and flush. And finally I relocate him, moves down the edge about 40 yards, sticks it again. So I go ahead and flush and flush and flush and flush and flush. We go again, flush and flush. And I mean, like 4 relocations. And that's one thing a lot of people don't do. It's as a side note that I trust the dogs enough that get it done, get it right.
You'll keep giving them a chance to pin those birds.
Exactly. And so we get down to the end, and now we have nothing. And he's hunting around and hunting and hunting and hunting and hunting. The judges say, hey, man, why did you even flush? And I said, what?
Oh.
He said, you had this thing won. The dog did a phenomenal job. I said, well, what I heard back, blah, blah, blah. And they said, no, Tom, we weren't talking to you. We were irritated with the situation. But you were clean as a whistle. They said, you just took yourself out of the national championship.
Oh.
Well, I call the dog, and I come in, and the dog wagon comes down that edge, and about 100 yards down that edge, a covey of birds blow out of there.
Oh, my goodness. Heartbreak redefined.
You know, so that dog ran a 2 hour, you know, at a callback, and essentially, in my mind, he had nothing to prove. You know, he won it. It was bad luck, you know, just a miscommunication. And then he went on to win it at Dancyville when it was an hour and a half, and he put down 2 hours of, I would say, probably one of the cleanest, finest performances that I can remember.
Wow.
And the year before, we lost him in the callback, and we ended up pulling the tracker, and he was standing for probably, I would say, roughly from where they said they last saw him go in there, you know, the road gallery, to where we were, until when we got to him, was about 35 minutes. And he had a big covey of birds in there as if he'd been, you know, he just pointed them 2 seconds ago.
Wow.
And, you know, that was the kind of dog he was. If you lost him and you pulled the tracker, there's about a 99% chance you're going to find him pointed. You walk by him, somebody missed him, he was dug in deep. And, you know, he just was a dog that you know, we'd put him we'd take him out to the prairies, and he'd put on a show. We'd come back, run a walking stake. He was always in contention. We go to a cover dog stake a week later, he was in contention. You could go to a horseback stake, he was in contention. there again, to me, one of the great ones. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of really, really good dogs, but when somebody says a great one to me, that there aren't many of those.
No, there's not, and it gets thrown around loosely. There's not as many great ones as there are good ones. There's just not that many.
And the two dogs we just talked about, are two of those dogs to me that are up on a pedestal. That they were that good. And I mean, hey, there's dogs when I get to a trial and I'm like, oh man, you have to beat them.
Yes, that's right. But that's why you're there. That's why you're there. You want to run against that dog. It's the most honest assessment of your breeding, your training, your string, your owners, to run against the best. And if you're a competitor and you're just out to get your picture took, you'll avoid the best. You'll go run in places where you're not going to find out what you have, and you're just hunting to get your picture taken. You're not that way. You want to put your dogs in against the best and the best, and we feel like the NBHA has that. And when Tom Waite says he's got a good one, it obviously has some merit to it, because the two that we talked about, you've had two cases where you had to tell somebody this is a good dog, and both of these dogs are in the Hall of Fame. So I'm going to say that you're a good assessor of talent and the prospects of a dog, and those dogs are going to live in infamy forever. Just notes that I wrote down for Red. Red is refined elegance and excellence, just that kind of dog. And I got to run against Guy several times. I was in the callback of the National Amateur Championship, it was the National Free-for-All Championship at Berea, and that picture cracks me up every time, because there's Guy, there's Pure Confidence, there's a couple other dogs in there, and there's like 3 or 4 Hall of Fame dogs in that callback, and then there's me and my dog, and we feel like passengers or tourists. It's just good to be in that callback. And Blair's Witch Project, Zanset Simply Red, going to live forever in our Hall of Fames. Now let's fast forward, Tom.
You want to know another memory about that free for all runner up too, and this is actually a side note that people laugh but don't laugh about. 20 minutes before I had to run in the callback with them, somebody spooked my horse and it drugged me down the road.
I heard that. I was actually on a fishing trip when that happened, but my buddy Brian that was handling my dog for me in that said, we've just had an awful thing. Something spooked Tom's horse and it's drug him all over tarnation and beat him to death.
Yeah. And I went, and after that picture was taken at the free-for-all, I had to take my coat off, and Andrea had to cut my Under Armour off so I could get my arm out of my shirt.
Oh man, brutal.
As smart as I am, Joe, I just went to the national championship the next week and ran and worried about it.
And it probably wouldn't have anything to do with the back surgery that you just had to have a while back either, would it?
Probably not. Listen, I'm not lucky, and anybody who knows me, luck is not a forte, so I have to be good sometimes.
There you go. Let's look at this string now. You've got a strong string of dogs as always. We've already mentioned a few of those. Braintree Blue Moon from that Zanset Simply Red line there. Another great red dog on your string. Tell us a little bit about your string right now. I know you don't want to leave anybody out, and you can glance over these or just mention a few of them, but tell us about your string for the 2023-2024 season.
Well, the string I've got right now is as competitive as anywhere.
Oh, wow.
But, one thing that I think we have a little different than a lot of people is because we run these different venues, we kind of bring a little bit of everything on the string to the table. You bring a dog that may not be a big running dog, but is a classy, honest bird dog. You get a dog that's your Hank Aaron, he hits him out of the park or you lose him.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of everything. And that's what makes, to me, a good competitive string. I've got Friday, which is Braintree Blue Moon, and he's knocking on the door every time he's on the ground. He's won a lot, but he's still, he's been the groomsman and not the groom,
Right.
Then we've got Blair's Cavalry Mountain, and I won the Futurity, NBHA Futurity with him.
Yeah, super precocious dog owned by Greg Blair again. Another real precocious pointer.
And that dog, it has got everything it takes to win the big trials. He needs a little luck.
Yeah.
And, he's a dog that this last year has really started, in my mind, to turn on, to become, we're a team now. And, that's really important. Foxy Lady Sadie, that's Mike Fox's dog. He also has, a litter mate to that dog, that just the one, I don't know if you saw, just gotten tore up by neighbors' dogs or something the other
Oh,
day.
no. Oh, no.
And, and that's old Fireball.
Yeah,
And,
Fireball.
another exceptionally good young dog. We
Very
got Brooke
good.
White Hot Blaze, who, another Simply Red puppy that, he's been winning. He's a powerful, powerful going dog, just like Friday is, and Sadie is the kind of dog where she's quick, snappy, fast on her feet. She's one of those dogs that you have to look at her. We've got a dog that Deb DeLobick owns and one that John DeLobick owns, a Max, and Bling, which are two dogs that they're both champions. One's getting a little close to retirement.
Mm-hmm.
The other one's still got, some legs and life left in them. Two more dogs. Max is a powerful going dog. Just a good bird dog, a powerful going dog. Bling, this last year at the National, was braced with Gary Malzone, and at 59 minutes of the first series, they said, she didn't back. Well, bad situation, but she had carded 7 fines at that point.
Oh, wow.
And was knocking her out of the park.
Yeah.
There's a dog that may be getting retired, and I don't know if he's retired yet, but I'm hoping we keep him in the string for a while yet. But he's, and that's Brushville Burton Spencer, a dog owned by Ken Milliken.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'll tell you, you want to talk about a bird dog.
A hard-knocking, tough setter. He dances every dance, doesn't he?
And you know what? And if you can find a dog that consistently looks as good as he does on his birds, I'd love to see it.
You better believe it. He is a painting.
And the thing is his owner is one of those guys that is a very dedicated sort. John and Deb, everybody's dedicated, but Kenny comes and helps and travels with us, and and he comes and he's always there to help.
Yeah.
It's at the National, at the free for all, where the Invitational, wherever he goes, he is there to help. And he got into it because of Spencer. And which is that, and he's, we've won a lot with him. When he's won, he's put on a show. He's always knocked on the door. He's put on shows in about every venue and every place we've run at. And Ken has another young dog, which is a guy puppy, Jack, who is going to be knocking on the door too. Good bird dog, big, powerful dog,
Right.
Good going. We've got a handful of first-year shooting dogs, Jack being one of them. Then we've got another guy puppy that I took second to futurity with, and he's a big, strong, beautiful dog, good going, good nose, good bird dog. And his sister, a dog named Kegama Lake Maggie, that's owned by Rick Torres. I mean, we've got, and I always say in this game, and it seems to be, maybe it's just me, but you have 4 or 5 core dogs that are all mature, know the game, go through the country, do it right. And then you have 4 or 5 dogs that are either coming into it or getting old.
Yeah, different stages of their career and different stages of development.
So that string, I mean, we've got a dog I love to run, but he's all or nothing. And when he does it right, he is an absolute, specimen.
Yeah.
Is a dog named Dale Creek Liar, which is owned by Dave Matthews. That, he's a dog. He's on that end now where he's starting to get older, but he's a dog that when he gets to it, he gets to it. And to me, I look at these things and I say every year, okay, what do I have? I've retired. We retired 4 or 5 dogs that were in guys' heyday per se. And, when you retire those dogs, it saddens you to know that their careers have been great, but they're over.
Yeah, yeah.
And you still hunt them, you guide with them, you do stuff with them.
I had that happen last week, Tom. I've got my Nick dog that was in that callback that we were talking about earlier. He's going on 10 years old. He's in the twilight of his career, and I just saw a glimpse of him this week. I was running him in a trial at an hour stake, and I just saw the inevitable degradation. The pop was not as sharp, and he was starting to kind of lose that sizzle that made him unique and different. And it's unfortunate that it goes that way, but you start to pick up on those things and start to make career moves for those dogs and stuff, and reload when those dogs fall out of the system.
And that's For the amateur, it's a lot harder to see that, especially if they're a 1 or 2 dog family. The beauty of these walking stakes is I think the longevity of some of these dogs, especially in some of the amateur and the weekend trials and stuff,
Yeah.
it is better because it allows the amateur and the owner to go out and run these dogs and still have fun. Now to play at the national level or to play at the championship level when you're traveling, they may not be able to do it, but
Yeah.
they still have the ability. And my son always says to me, and it's a standing joke around here, is I'll say, yeah, well, I think so and so is, I think he's about 8. He's about 8 years old now. We got probably a year or two. He's still strong, good going, and my son a few years back, there was a dog called Romeo's Attitude. It was a son of Honky Tonk Attitude and out of a guardrail or a rail dancer daughter.
Yeah.
And the dog was a premier bird dog, a 3-time runner-up champion. I think 30 or 40 shooting dog placements. No matter what bird he ran on, wild birds, pen raised birds, he was always there. Gritty, tough, unbelievable dog. Well, I said to my son, I said, well, Dave says, let's run Jesse. And he goes, all right. Why? I said, well, why not? I said, hell, he's only 8 or 9 years old. Well, we run him that spring and he becomes the 12 o'clock field trial club shooting dog of the year. He's in the top 5 on the NBHA. At the end of the spring season, my kid says, Dad, you really need to retire him. And I said, why is that? He brings his paperwork out and lays it on the table. The dog was 12 and a half years old.
Oh, wow. Wow. Unreal.
And I thought to myself, I just did that the year before with another dog that his name was Dale Creek Rail, who was a champion and a phenomenal bird dog and a phenomenal competitor. And I ran him in our championship in the northern region here, and he had like 6 fines, and they were all in the last 20 minutes. And it was like, dogs were dying in the heat, and he just kept going. But you could all of a sudden just see that you're talking that degradation, that pop, that snap was gone. And so my son says to me, he goes, Dad, you're not going to do that again, are you? I said, well, I just did, so let's try to keep. I almost put a setter that I got, Hidden Hollow Sammy, another phenomenal dog that had a great career, honest bird dog. I ran him till he was 13. He'll be 16 next month.
That's awesome. Proof that age is only a number. And we've got dogs that compete well into double digits. And that, you're right. Just because your dog is approaching double digits or in double digits, there's weekend trials, 30 minutes. A lot of those dogs in their twilight, they can put together a good 30 minutes, and you can still have fun with those. It's the beauty of our game and the offerings in the NBHA. And, Tom, you went through a list of your current dogs and the owners attached to that, and there's a unique thing here. There's a connective tissue amongst those people and yourself, and unique to your career. And I'm going to say it's unique to your career, and there might be other systems where this exists, but I don't know where else it exists. Is this very tight-knit community of amateur handlers? Most of them, if not all of them, are owners of yours, of dogs on your string, that you have helped establish and assist, and most of these people primarily make up the 12 o'clock field trial club, that coveted group of people up there. But not only to win open stakes and championships under your whistle with their dogs, but for them to go out and win amateur championships and amateur stakes under their own whistles. Tell us about this unique fraternity or group of bird dog people. This group is responsible for 4 of the 2023 Amateur Invitational invitees, and 4 of them are on your string. Friday, Duke, Sadie, and Bob. 2 of those dogs made the callback. This community and this order of people and these dogs and the system you guys have, is all of that as gratifying as it sounds to be a part of this group of people and to have help establish it and to procure it and to have this friendship? Is that as good as it sounds?
It is. And I think one thing that makes me unique as a trainer and from a lot of other pros, and it's that desire and ability for my clientele to become not only owners, but to become handlers, to run their dogs, to enjoy their dogs, to be part of this and bring them to the highest level. And this club that we have is very unique. It's not breed specific. We've got short, like Duke, that Mike Baker ran in the Invitational. It's a short hair. we've got other people that have gotten into the club in the last handful of years that, are essential parts of this group, essential parts of this club that are, maybe have short hairs, they've got wire hairs, they've got Vizslas, they've got different kinds of dogs, but everybody's included. And I'm going to tell you, these dogs that they run, and I think because of our expectations and my expectations, and if you were to ask several of them, they would say, I don't pull punches. And if you want to win, you want to be part of the game, it's a school of hard knocks, but I'm there for them every step of the way. But, they're there for me every step of the way.
Yeah.
And, this club, that we've got, and, being very fortunate to see it, and me traveling all over the country for years, you see generally 1% of the people doing 99% of the work.
Yes, exactly right.
We've got a very good group of people that go out of their way to come and help. I mean, even, every Sunday, kind of in the off season and in winter, we've got a group of people that come out, and it's, I run 99.9% of their dogs on my string, and they come out, we brace dogs, we run, they train, they help. They clean bird pens. They help. Hell, the one today was sweeping the floor.
Yeah, that's what you said.
But it is very, to me, that's a huge thing. Does it hurt me to a degree when it comes to me running a string in the open, the big open trials? It does, because these dogs aren't with me 12 months of the year. These dogs are with me a shorter period. Some of them are with me a longer period, but it, to me, there's as much excitement in watching, Kathy Lewis, Ken Milliken, John and Deb DeLobick, Mike Baker, Mike Fox, I could go on and on and on of these people that have put the time and effort and entrusted me not only in their dogs, but to teach them how to be handlers. And, I think it's a testament to the quality of people we have. I think it's a testament to the dogs that we're fortunate to have, but that doesn't come without a lot of work. And I think that this is huge. And like you said, you look at the past invitationals for the best, we'll even say, from when Greg had won the National Amateur and National Amateur Invitational, there were always a percentage of dogs that were from here.
Yeah.
Those dogs that I had run in the open stakes that these handlers have taken and run and had success.
It's amazing that it's twofold like that, because, let's face it, all these dogs that are on the open circuits, they're on the handler's trailer, and they stay there either year round or they stay there for a majority of the year, and then they go home for a little while. Then it's back to the prairies to get tuned up and stuff like that. But I'll never forget the Southern Regional Championship down at the Ag Preserve at the Gumby's place. I'm not expecting to see a carload of people from Wisconsin, but lo and behold, here's Greg Blair, here's Ken, here's Deb, here's the whole 12 o'clock field trial club team, and they're loaded for bear. They've got these dogs that have been on your string, and it's just amazing that you guys are this symbiotic organism that reaches into the open stakes and the amateur stakes. But I'll tell you one thing that it gives you, Tom, and I know you've realized this. There's a competitive advantage to meeting on Sundays and throwing these high-caliber dogs down. And not only is iron sharpening iron, you're ironing out holes in these dogs and these handlers, and you're essentially practicing by having a field trial on those Sundays.
And I would agree. And it's, you don't see those things very often. And if you do see a group, it's usually a group of people that are, 2 or 3 guys or 2 or 3 women that hang out, that they go run their dogs and they do it. But these are people from all different walks of life. These are people that, are all different, started in all different venues, had all different, wants, needs. They do, some of them, do different things. Some of the people in the club don't run field trials, but they run hunt tests. But they're there every Sunday. They're prepping their dogs the same way. They're doing the same thing. They're having success. But there's something to me to go out and watch. And now I'm not going to tell you it doesn't get frustrating once in a while, because if I was a big drinker, there'd be some of these Sundays I would be lit by about noon. But they're great people with good dogs, and you're right. And not only do we have the opportunity to run that mock field trial, get that, But the dogs that they're running against are dogs that are ranked and throughout the country.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just, Joe Blow's got a short hair he brought in that he pheasant hunted on the shooting preserve last week, and this guy's got a pointer that he grouse hunted 2 days this year. I mean, these are dogs that are from polished workers, and part of my string that I enjoy watching people go out and run them. And like I said, I get more excitement out of hearing, them do well. I mean, I'll tell you, it was, you want to talk about the, like the parent that sits there in the stands watching his kid at his first game. We were at the Red Setter National Amateur, and Kathy was running Friday, and Andrew was scouting for her. And we had about 5 minutes left, and she had it flat out won. And I'm sitting back there because I can't say a word. So I'm riding on a horse in the back of the gallery, about ripping my hair out because I know we've got 5 minutes for this dog to win the National Amateur. And all he's got to do is cross the creek, whistle him on, and let him blow out the front end, and he will go. And sitting back there and watching what I knew was going to happen, and I said to one of my other clients I was riding with, I said, oh my gosh, here we go. This is what's going to happen. And it was like I painted the picture because I know every intricacy of how these dogs run, where they go, what they do, and what they're doing. And I said, oh man, and I'm going, please don't let it happen. Please don't let him. Sure enough, the dog runs by. There had been 2 birds from a brace or 2 before that a dog had caught, and they left out there. And as he was running through after his 4th or 5th find, doing a great job, he just ducked his head, picked the bird up, never slowed down, and kept running. The judge rides up, and there's a half dead bird flopping around. The dog just goes on, and that was the end of his bid. And it was like 57 or 58 minutes.
Wow. And
I was so much rooting and ecstatic for Kathy, like as if I was winning the national championship myself.
Yeah.
And to me, those are the things that make this rewarding too, is seeing these people enjoy it. I mean, let's be honest. If the average person has a dog and they field trial it, if they don't get to handle it and run it themselves and have some participation in it, why do most people want to run them? There's no reason. They'll go out and hunt at the shooting preserve on the weekend, maybe go grouse hunting, maybe go out west for a trip. But there's got to be a reason to bring everybody together and make everybody want to participate.
And you guys have fashioned out a culture there that's like I said, so unique, where you get to fellowship and share with each other and help make each other better, and you get to share in each other's breedings. And, there's pups that this person had from this dog that so-and-so ran. And it really is a team effort. It's so cool. And these owners have helped elevate your career and take you to places, to the top tier, top echelon on so many circuits with so many different breeds. Tom, but what your career up to this point, it's far from over. Still a lot left to do. What have been some of your biggest accomplishments?
Well, I mean, it doesn't always, it's not always in the pointing dog field trial world. I mean, I look at, we go back to firsts. I always say first, you can't beat me at that because I already did it. Things like, the first 3 Airedales in the history of the breed to ever get Master Hunter titles.
Wow.
A mother and 2 daughters, essentially, the dogs were, with people that were show people, agility people that never hunted a day in their life. And we went out and those were the first 3 Airedales in the history of the breed. And
That's
they did
incredible.
It with a vengeance. Those things to me are huge. Winning the national the NBHA national is huge. Having some of these, I've had 4 or 5 dual master hunter retrievers, and people say, well, what's the big deal with that? Well, you're taking a dog, putting a master hunter title on, a retriever master hunter title on them, which can be hard enough, trickery and tough. And there's a reason why, as you go through the levels, you get to masters, the dog numbers are minuscule compared to juniors and seniors.
Sure.
And then to go take those same dogs and go to an upland, a spaniel test, where they got to sit to flush, run the blinds, the handling, do the field work that a Springer or a field-bred cocker or something is way more proficient at. And in doing those things, I mean, those things to me are all, parts of my career that I think, I look at and I go, they're great accomplishments. The great accomplishments of having 2 dogs happily, going to be in 2 different Hall of Fames.
Yeah.
Taking these dogs and sometimes I look at my accomplishments as far as the people that I've helped get to certain places is a huge accomplishment to me. Kathy being as successful as she is running Friday, Deb DeLobick winning a championship with her bling dog, it's getting these people involved and them excelling in doing it is a huge accomplishment to me. It doesn't always have to be about me, it's about what I've done in my career that either sets me apart from other people, or something that I look back and I go, it's kind of like that training scenario. You go out and I look at something happen with a dog that was a problem child, and I see a little flick of a little spark, and I'm ecstatic. I'm jumping up and down. Hey, we got something. And the people that are there with me are shaking their head thinking, I didn't see anything. It's those things. It's when everything comes together, and like I said, I've been very fortunate in all those venues to play at those top levels.
Yeah, you've been extremely, extremely fortunate, and you've said that several times. You constantly, you've told these stories and talked about these people and these dogs, and you always preface it and end it with how fortunate you are, and that's grossly understated, and I can hear it in your voice. But you're also fortunate enough to have good help, and you've mentioned your clients help you. Your son Tyler, he's more home base, more situated at the home base with training and stuff. But now, when I see you at the trials, Tom, there's a certain somebody that sits in the scouting saddle for you that is a big cog in your wheel, and that's Andrea. How important is Andrea, and what does she do for you?
She's definitely better looking than I am.
Definitely. I'll agree. I will agree.
Hey, Joe, that's a decoy. That's to get people looking away from what's going on with my dogs.
It's worked.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's definitely worked in the past, but not always to my advantage. But because they want to watch her, and maybe she shouldn't have been there. But no, I will tell you, I am, as fortunate as anybody could be. It's something that she was never from a dog background. She got into retrievers to start with, ran some hunt test retrievers I had trained for, and, I was on a horse limited, started a horse years ago. And what it's turned into is, I don't know that I could find better help. I don't know that I could find better help that understands the dogs. I don't know I could find better help around, at the trials, at the kennel, good with the clients. She helps everybody. And for a person who never had the time and effort put in on a horse, and you talk scouting, I'd put her up against anybody. And I would say that day in and day out, she's been every national championship I've won. She scouted for me. I don't know a lot of people that can say that they were scouted in all those venues and won all those either. It is a team effort. And like I said, she's great with the dogs. She knows the ins and outs. She pays attention. She spends time with them. Clients' dogs, on our string know her as well as they know me. And, because she's out there sitting on a string with them, but she knows where they're going to go, where they're going to be, the important things. And don't think she doesn't chew my ass off.
Oh, I was getting ready to say, there's got to be times, though, where she lines your brakes.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? And it's, to me, that shows her compassion and desire to win and be part of it, too.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know, and for years, hey, I'm fortunate to have, Greg and some other people that have helped me a lot over the years scouting. But there's a reason why Greg and Kathy and all them are happy to have Andrea scout for them.
Yeah.
Because there's something to be said. And, it's like I said, I can't say enough. I don't want to get her head blown up too much because they probably can't get it through the door next time.
Oh, well, if you're not being slapped in the back of the head, she must not be in the room right now, or you'd be slapped in the back of the head.
No, she's not. But no, and you're right. A good part of my first half of my career was spent on the road and going to these things and do a lot of this stuff alone. I had people that would come. I had people that would help. I had clients that were there. But, this is a whole different kind of good and a whole different kind of right and a whole different kind of, she was down at the, when we were at the NBHA National at Ames. And, Nick Thompson, who has scouted as many winning dogs there at that all championship as anybody, he was giving people pointers and tips on where to go and what to do. And Andrea, after about the second day, is irritated and pissed off, and believe me, she doesn't hold her tongue. Anybody who knows her, I don't know that she could hold it. So she walks up to Nick and she says, "Hey, you've been giving all these people all this information, all this advice, and all this stuff on where to go, how to scout, what to do." She goes, "You can't help me?" And he looks right at her and says, "I've watched you ride the last 2 days, and there's nothing I can tell you don't already know."
Wow, that's awesome. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So, I mean, as far as development of young dogs, as far as scouting, as far as just putting in time and helping, I mean, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Such an unbelievable package for your clients, your friends, and the patrons of Dale Creek Gundogs. They get you, they get Andrea, they get your grounds, and they get an invite into this community of dog people that's going to forge friendships for the longest time and help sharpen each other up to enjoy the outdoors and these dogs. It's just I would say that's one of your greatest accomplishments is the establishment of these friendships and this team effort and all those things. How much more fun can you have on the dog but enjoying it with so many good people as a team? It's unbelievable. Tom, let's stand back and let's look at this sport from 20 or 30,000 feet above, and let's look at the whole body of it. How do we grow this sport as we go into new times where demographics are changing? The people that have propped up field trials are fading out or they're passing on, and there's a new wave of people that enjoy dogs, maybe not in the same way, maybe through different avenues and different breeds. How do we encapsulate those people and grow this sport that me and you love?
Well, I think there's a plethora of things that we can look at. And, I'll start with, the NBHA having the gun dog, the CSID flush stakes and things like I think that is a huge way to get people involved.
Amen.
And, people get hungry. And if you get people involved, the everyday Joe can bring his dog. He can go run it. It doesn't have to be broke. He's going to be probably running with a lot of other people, or she's going to be running with a lot of other people like themselves.
Yeah.
There's the competition is there, but there's not the pressure.
That's exactly right. Good point.
So if you could pick up, 10 or 12 people at a gun dog stake, and the CSID flush stake, and you can do that and do that and do that, I would bet you the carryover into maybe their next dog, they're going to start it in the Derby.
Yeah.
Then maybe the next dog after that, after they've run through the Derby and tried the shooting dog, now they want to start playing at that other level. So now the quality of dogs that they're starting to make and bring to the table, because they see what it takes, and it's been open arms. It's been a competitive but a non-confrontational stake to go out and run it and do. And the other thing I think, and I think part of why I do what I do and how I do it is because I see how crucial it is. I remember as a boy going to field trials, and there would be 20 or 30 kids running around and playing grab ass and jumping around, getting in trouble and getting whooped by their dads for doing stupid things. But those are things I remember, and you don't see that. And I think that the people we have to cater to now are the amateur people that, there's a lot of people that I know, that clients I have every year, that are 25, 30, 35 years old, that are getting their first dog, that weren't able to have a dog as a kid, or want to get into hunting and, want to do stuff that they can do with the dog, with the kids, with the family, and still be their competitive spirit. Yeah. And I think we need to start looking more at open arms and trying to encourage these people to these, I won't say lesser stakes, but maybe unbroke stakes, young dog stakes.
Sure.
And making it a good place. I can tell you, I've been to several field trials, and it irritates me to say it, but there's places that I've not felt welcomed.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel welcome, and I do it for a living, and I don't really give a rat's ass what anybody thinks, you get somebody who comes in out of the blue, no open arms, nobody to talk to them, they shine them on.
They are not coming back.
Those people aren't coming back.
No.
And in order for, these people to come back and excel and do things, I'll tell you one thing, we have the amateur trial here at the kennel every spring. And if anybody who's been up for it can tell you, the number of people that come to that trial is as many as I've seen at 90% of the big championships.
Wow.
Some people aren't running dogs. Some people are just in the gallery, walking or riding in the gallery, or going, they want to see what it's all about.
Yeah.
But it's an environment of like people. it's an environment of people that have the opportunity as much as the next guy does. And a lot of them are clients of, dogs we've trained, people just getting into the game. And, and I'll say to them, I just had some people that brought us a setter, that we just finished up here a couple of weeks ago. And I said, you guys need to come in spring and you need to come to this field trial, amateur field trial, and just get a feeling for what it's all about. And I could, I can tell you in our club alone, we've picked up 4 or 5 new people that were either never dog owners or were in other venues just this last year.
Wow.
And that's one trial. That's one club.
That's one trial. But the retention and the intrinsic value of that, getting those return customers, that's the growth of the sport. And we had a rule when I was running the Bluegrass Walking Shooting Dog Club that if you saw a new person there, your job and your duty, you had to go and speak to them. Everybody had to go and shake their hand and say hello and tell them to ask questions and follow along. And Tom, I'm going to add to what you've already said. I think one of the ways, if not the biggest way we grow the sport, is we help explain it to the people on the outside looking in. This is a very intricate, very, not hidden type of sport, but it's just got so many nuances that people don't understand. They don't understand what a scout is, and they don't understand what a broke dog is, and they don't understand these things that you and I take for granted. And we have to make this sport and the things within it, the components, palatable and understandable, and that's bringing them to a gun dog stake. And if that means giving them a person to walk with them side by side to explain things and help them with protocol and what to do in this situation and what you don't do and what you don't like, that's what it's going to take to get people in it, and that's what it's going to take to get these new trialers. So what does Tom Waite, when he comes into a new trial or somebody calls and they're asking about Dell Creek, what's the advice that Tom Waite gives to a new field trialer?
Well, the advice I give to them is, I try to first and foremost, I'll say to them, you need to come out and either come along with me when we run a broke dog. We encourage a lot. I encourage a lot of clients to come out on these Sundays. And, to a degree, these people come out and they want to see what's going on. They don't, like you said, they don't understand the game. They don't understand really what's going on. They don't understand why a dog runs to God's creation and back, and then you find it standing up on top of the hill wondering how the hell it got there in the first place.
Yes, right.
And they don't understand the dynamics of the game because they think to win a field trial, your dog has to go out and point as many more birds than the other guy's dog, no matter what it does. And trying to explain it to them and giving them an option. And, and I give these people, a lot of these people options, and I'll say, even if you don't get involved in field trialing, you need to get your dog and yourself involved in something. Maybe start with a hunt test, something that you feel comfortable in, and then come to the field trials.
Yeah.
Because most people, and I was just thinking as you were talking about the people coming in, and we used to run a youth stake all the time.
Yeah.
Hard part of it is, Joe, there isn't any youth.
Yeah.
I mean, so what do you do instead? You're now trying to cater to and get the people that are involved, that are in their, like I said, mid-20s to mid-40s, for God's sakes, and trying to make these people, understand what it is and to enjoy it and explain to them, everybody here, like when we have an amateur stake or we have the people out, I'll say everybody here is in the same position you are or was in the same position you are, and get these people interacting and talking. Get them interacting and talking with people that have been in that same start.
Networking.
To let them know, hey, we've been there. It's not like, it's no different than going to something and, I the other day, it sounds stupid, both my back surgeries and everything. I said, man, I need to find a Pilates class. I need to find something to go to. Here's a guy who's done and been about everywhere, played in the rodeo circuit, ran sled dogs professionally, did a lot of things without any, never batting an eye about it. But I'm scared to death to go to one of these freaking yoga or Pilates classes with 30 people in there.
Yeah.
Over, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a much lesser thing, but the reality is here's a person that I'm not afraid of anything to try it and do it, but I'm thinking going in there, holy man, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine what these new people are thinking.
Yeah.
Coming into the dog world, it's overwhelming. There's a lot going on, but the big thing is, and there again, I think clubs need to do a little more open arms. I think we need to, when these people get involved, we need to invite them to these training, sessions, or if some guys are getting together, to give them an opportunity to see really what's involved at not a competitive level. I mean, let's be honest, you get to a field trial. I get to a field trial, I'm getting ready to run, and people want to talk to me. I'll talk and talk and talk, but my mind isn't there.
Yeah.
And so there's better places to do it. And that's why, like, we talk about these stakes, these Gundog stakes and things like that, where you can get a person involved and they can go out and they're competing. I mean, they're competing against other dogs. They're competing against other people. But the big thing is they're competing against people that are very similar to where they are at.
Yes.
And you hope that hunger takes them to the next level. I hope that hunger that those people, and it's happened several times where I've had people say, okay, I'm done with this hunt test stuff. I'm done with the CSID flush. I want to play with the big dogs. I want to play with the broke dogs. And they've watched and been able to participate enough that they know where they want to go with it.
Yeah.
And then it's somebody like me, and I think pros, can either have a big help or a big detriment to bringing people in. I do the best I can to try to bring people in. And I've had a lot of people I brought in that, due to demographics, they went to somebody else in time. Hey, that's great, as long as they're involved.
We all strive to have this sport in the best shape possible and in the best health possible, but that's going to require new blood. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a daunting thing to pull up in a parking lot with a bunch of horse trailers, dogs everywhere, and a bunch of people wearing chaps looking like they know what they're doing, and you have got the dog box in the back of your truck or the single crate in the back of your car, and you just feel out of place. And when we see that car pull up and we see those people, and if you're this person driving up, there needs to be an understanding that somebody's going to come embrace you. They're going to come find you, meet you, find common ground, ask any questions and stuff, and shepherd you. And I would venture to say, for us established field trialers, there's going to be more gratification. Take your wins and your championships and all the other things that you're very proud of in the bird dog world in the field trial game. I'd venture to say you're going to have more gratification showing somebody the game, them finding a love for it, and you helping nurture it into a career. I'd venture to say most people that have been in this game for years, that's one of their biggest accomplishments, is starting people and showing people this beautiful game and another avenue to enjoy dogs. But Tom, the game marches on, just like time marches on. The people change, the dogs change, and all that, but the game is still here. We've still got to cultivate it. Where do you see the sport 20 years from now?
Well, I think that is going to be relative to where we decide to go now. And, I know as long as I'm able and willing and training and able to do it, I'm going to try to keep things the way they are or better. I'm hoping that some of my clients' grandkids, kids, people that are involved will keep doing it. I think the one thing we run into that, and I think about the days of when I was a kid, the field trial grounds that were available and the places that these big trials ran, the places where, I watched Destinaire run in Illinois and the different things when I thought I was a kid, where you'd go and see these dogs and you'd see these things is shrinking. I think we need to make sure we establish some of these field trial grounds. I mean, there's some states that have great grounds, great locations, things that are historic that are going to stay that way. But I think that in 20 years, we really need to, I don't want to say go after that middle age, those people that are out of college, starting families, maybe, or that are starting to retire or do things. We have to look at a different dynamic of people because, you look at all the stuff. And I mean, we've got 7 kids between us and, from 34 to 21. And you look at the 34-year-old and you look at the 21-year-old and how in that span society has changed.
Yes.
You look at the computers, the social media, the phones, the things, the gaming that detracts from. When I was a kid, we had Pong, for God's sakes, if you were even able to play it. But, that's something we're losing. Yeah. I mean, we're losing that dynamic and that age group of kids. And we have to go after the people that are just beyond that or are looking to do something, to a hobby to pick up. I think we need to be a lot more inclusive. I think I wouldn't say advertise is the best word, but I think we have to start getting some of these older people involved in hopes that their family follows suit, because we're losing a big percentage of the kids, not because they don't have an interest or not because they don't want to be outside, but because society has now made it where it's so much easier and there's so much self-gratification and instant, happiness in doing something by pressing a button or doing something. I mean, we encourage our kids and my grandkids. And when people bring children out, I love having kids come work dogs with us.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't matter the breed. It doesn't matter the involvement. But the only thing I think we can really do to make sure in 20 years that this sport is going, hopefully excelling from where it is now as far as numbers and stuff, is we need to start going to these different venues and making these, making it a reason for these kids to get involved. And it's, like I said, I do everything I think we can do to try to encourage it. It's sad to me to see what it's went to, because when the mean age of field trialers is probably in the, early 50s,
Yeah.
that doesn't do a whole lot for our sport. But, we had talked earlier with some of the new pros coming in, the younger guys, I'll do anything I can to help them.
Yeah.
I want to see them excel. I want to see them bring that younger clientele and those people that in 20 years, or 30 years, they're going to be where I am now.
Sure.
I want to see it carry on. But that's up to us and how we do it. And it's as much up to us as individuals to be inclusive, getting people involved and including them in things that maybe they've never been part to, maybe they've never been part of.
Actively going after people. And part of that is being visible. We need, this sport needs more visibility, and we need to get into those channels. I know social media, like it or love it, I'm one of the ones that's just not a big fan of it, but the value of it is invaluable. And we have to have people see it. They have to see people enjoying themselves, having fun, and doing something they love, and encouraging other people to get in. The youth, that's the way to grab the youth. Youth are needing reasons to get outdoors. Chasing a bird dog is the best reason. We've got groups like the Youth Field Trial Alliance that is spearheading campaigns to not only give the youth that's interested in it already a chance to compete, but to go and get youth that have no idea about bird dogs and field trials, to just give them a taste. You can't force feed this on anybody. They're either going to like it, they're either going to hate it or love it. And we need to find those kids, those middle-aged people, those people that just love dogs, and we need to get them encapsulated in this and get them to stick. That way Dale Creek Gundogs goes on, that way field trials goes on, and that way the procurement of this sport goes on well into the future. Now, Tom, me and you have both kind of said we're not the best social media guys, but you're going to have people that are going to want to connect with you. They're going to want to talk to Tom Waite, pick his brain, ask him questions, find out more about you. How can people connect with Tom Waite and the Dale Creek Gundog team?
Well, one of your favorite ways is through Facebook.
Yeah.
Social media, going that way. And believe me, I'm about as old school as it gets when it comes to that. So it took me a little while. I was beat down by my kids and Andrea and everybody else to get, into the times, and it's been tough.
I'm just glad your pictures aren't anymore looking like the old Western photos where, they're black and white. So if you've got some recent photos on there, so that's good.
Well, that's why you got some of the people, like our buddy Greg and stuff like that, because they got to keep me in shape and in line, because they're, like I said, some things to me that, and it's that old school mentality of, I'm still a believer in the phone call. I'm still a believer in, the personal one-on-one, because to me, that's how I grew up and that's what I know. And that's how you get to know people and meet people. But social media is, through our Dale Creek Gundogs Facebook. You can email us, which is another good way to do it. But as I tell everybody, if I'm in front of my computer or if I'm on the phone, that means your dog's not getting run.
That's true. That's very true.
Everybody who doesn't have a dog with me wants me to answer them back 5 minutes after they call. Everybody who's got a dog with me doesn't ever want me to.
A good point. That's a good point. So if you're interested in connecting with Tom Waite or finding out more about Dale Creek Gundogs, find him on Facebook, send him a private message or comment. Get connected to him, find out more, and get hooked up. Tom, you've been exceptional. So glad that you took the time to come on. So appreciative of what you mean to the NBHA in our circuit and the camaraderie that you share with us and all of our members. And you're a patron not only of the NBHA but for the sport. Can't thank you enough for what you do, and thank you for coming on the Breakaway Podcast.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I mean, and I have to, my hat goes off to you. I think this is a huge step in the right direction for bird dogs, for bird dog people, for these organizations. And Joe, it's stuff like this, and you taking your time, out of your day to go ahead and pick somebody like, me, who I do this every day. My hobby, is my career. My career is my hobby, but it gives me a chance to hopefully share with some people. And you're making, through doing this, you're making that, option to other people out there to hear what's really out there, to get a feel for who we are, what the sport's about. And, without people like you doing things like this, I don't know that we'll be able to move ahead.
Well, that's very kind of you. It's a ball of fun for me. I tell people I've got a front row seat or backstage pass to some of our sports' biggest players and characters and heroes, and I'm just a passenger, and I get to help facilitate this. The sport and the beauty of it and the value of it and what it provides people that love dogs, if that message gets out, the sport will take care of itself. But it's up to us. It's our responsibility to get that message out so it hits people and it hits them in their heartstrings. And we're just so thankful to have you and appreciate you for coming on, Tom.
Well, and like I said, I appreciate you, and the word's always out there. If we're at a trial and anybody needs help, they got any questions, they need anything, any one of us from the 12 o'clock club or myself, I'm more than happy to do what I can, to help anybody out. So I just, that's an invitation that goes out that some people take advantage of, but this is an opportunity, an option for people to say, hey, he is real. I'm just like everybody else. I just have a few more miles under my boots.
That's your super guy, Tom. Super job. Thanks.
Thank you again.
That was the Breakaway Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed the podcast, please tell a friend, like, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms to stay up to date on everything National Bird Hunters Association and all other field trial related content. But hopefully, we'll see you next time at the Breakaway.